When I met Paul Heyman, I had no idea what he did for a living. Absolutely no idea.
How the hell did you go, if you don't mind, like, how did that happen? Where the hell did you guys even meet?
Waiting online to use the bathroom at China Club.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's awesome.
True story. Then when you meet somebody and we're shooting the shit waiting to use the bathroom, I see him a few nights later at Danceteria or Limelight or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And I kept running into him. And like anybody else in the club world, I was in the nightclub world at the time. I was a club promoter here in New York. Became friends with him, but had no idea what he did for a living. But the way other people treated him, I figured he was like either a drug dealer, a mobster, or a pornographer.
All the above.
Yeah, he was a little of everything because people kept giving him drink tickets. It's like, Paulie, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. This is so-and-so. I'd be like, wow, they're really kissing this dude's ass. I had no idea what he did for a living. I found out what he did for a living by mistake. They were doing there was a club in New York that was doing a big opening event where they had a jam session, a fashion show, magicians, and like one of the other events was the presentation of the PWI Pro Wrestling Illustrated Manager of the Year Award to Paul E. Dangerously.
Holy shit.
And it was on the flyer, it was on the club card. So I get to the club, my friends of mine are in the band, they're doing the jam session, some heavy duty musicians. I went to the club to support the promoters that were friends of mine that were promoting the night. I go up to the VIP room and there's that dude, Paul. But he's not wearing blue jeans and a leather jacket. He's wearing a suit. And I'm like, oh, all right, maybe this is an upscale club and I'm here looking, like Rob Zombie. Maybe I'm underdressed. And he's like, what are you doing here? I said, well, my friend Joe is singing in the jam and they got some stupid wrestling shit going on later. I figure I'd check that out. Fast forward an hour later, I'm circling the club. I go back up to the VIP room, and they have now set up a 6-foot projection screen where they're showing Paul E. Dangerously highlights. So I look at the screen over there. I look at my friend Paul over there. I look at the screen. I look at Paul, and the first thought that pops into my mind is, oh, shit, my friend is one of those freaks that dresses up like pro wrestlers. It's just, I didn't put two and two together. And he comes over, he puts his arm around my shoulder. He goes, so who is that handsome guy on the screen? I'm like, so that's what you do for a living? Huh, all right. And that's how I met Paul. And that's how I found out what he did for a living. He started doing his ECW thing. And I was getting invitations from a mutual friend that we had he was a member of my band, but he did sound for early ECW Eastern, a dude named Mike Lawler. Once a week, I would get an invitation to go to a show. And honestly, I don't want to see wrestling. I haven't watched it in years.
Yeah.
So I used to use the excuse I had a Ford Bronco with like 300,000 miles on it. So I'd use the excuse my car will never make it to Pennsylvania. Fine. I get a phone call on a Thursday. He's like, Harry, I want you to come to my show this Friday. I'm like, dude, my car won't make it to Pennsylvania. He goes, the show's at the Lost Battalion Hall on Queens Boulevard. It's 15 minutes away from your house. If your car won't get you to Queens Boulevard, I will send a cab. So I'm like, all right, I'll come see the show. I found out that the show was from 8 to 11, so I showed up at 10:45.
Musician, again, man, fucking always running late.
Yeah, nothing against it. I didn't know the product, and last time I watched wrestling, it was like clowns and jugglers and plumbers, and it wasn't my cup of tea.
Shit. Right.
So I got there just in time to save face. Paul saw me there. He introduced me to Sabu, to Cactus Jack. I had no clue who either of these guys were. They were the first two people I met. Went and hung out with Paul afterwards. That's the only reason I went. I went to Lost Battalion a couple of other times, again, showing up right as the show was about to end. Then they started showing the show here in New York at like midnights on Saturdays. So I tuned in and I'm like, is this real? Yeah, it was one of those things where I wasn't sure if I was watching a wrestling show or a parody of a wrestling show because the violence was so over the top. So when I finally went and saw my first show from beginning to end, during that show, I saw the Gangsters jumping the Eliminators. I saw Big Dick Dudley putting a guy through a plate glass window. I saw blood and guts and all this shit. And I'm sitting there going, this is not the clowns and the monkeys and the jugglers and the plumbers, you know, and the repo men that disgusted me. This is like stick twisted. This is like a mosh pit at a Murphy's Law show. This is Danzig telling the crowd to crucify someone. This is insane.
Right.
I like this. So that's how he got me in.
If you like that clip, check out the entire episode at jpdub.com and find more killer content from your homies at Juice Pro Wrestling.